So what can you do to establish rapport? So you're the originator here. You're the one that has the authority in the relationship. What can you do to establish this rapport very quickly? Because you have to get it right from the start. And most importantly, how do you hold that rapport during the entire sales process, not just during the sales conversation? Because many of us know, we may meet with Jim or Mary today, and we have to have another meeting and another meeting. It could take 2 or 3. I mean, the sales process could be 3 months long, and often is. I mean, I think, the higher the price and the higher the action threshold required on the side of the buyer to implement the purchase that they've just made, the longer that sales process is. And you have to maintain authority in that relationship the whole time, a lot of the times when you're not even in front of the prospect. So we're going to share with you 10 ways to do this, okay? So number 1 is the use of keywords, phrases, and what we call language patterns. Language patterns will be critical as you work off of a script, and you need to work off of a script, okay? You're going to need to work off of a script. If you're going to be successful in sales, you have to work off of a script. So here's some key phrases. Sound fair enough? Let me ask you a few quick questions. The reason for the call. Just give me one shot. You are definitely a perfect fit for this program. How's it going today? So how long have you been in business? The use of the words now and the use of the word so. These are periodically as transition words from one tonality to the next, or from one thought to the next. So let's shift gears here as an example. So what these words do is they allow you to shift the energy of the conversation in a way that feels natural and smooth to the other person while keeping them engaged. I love the use of the word perhaps, because let's face it, sometimes the subject, the buyer, doesn't know what they're talking about, right? Sometimes they have misinformation. What they believe is incorrect, and you need to be able to move them to understanding what is the truth or what is real. So this is a great word to use when you're telling your prospect that they're incorrect, that they may want to be open to a new idea. When you're seeding a suggestion, this is a beautiful word. Mary, perhaps the first step is to get you started with the basic package. Perhaps. I'm not telling Mary it's the first step. It's still her choice, but I'm conveying the message. Mary, perhaps the first step is to get you started with the basic package. I think it's important for us to highlight here that the use of any one of these tools in and of themselves may be insignificant. It's when you compound them and when you blend them together, when you stack one on top of the other, that it becomes really, really powerful. So let's look at this one, because this is a really powerful one. I hear what you're saying, Mary, but does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? So you're going to use this phrase when you're deflecting an objection. So Mary says, you know what, I just don't have the time right now. You know what, I have to check with my husband. You know what, the board isn't sure right now. And so what we want to do is we want to deflect that objection, and we want to get some micro agreements from Mary, because she just gave us an objection. We need to get her out of no, right? Mary just gave us a pretty big no. We need to get Mary back to yes. But the likelihood of us getting Mary back to a pretty significant yes when she just gave us a hard no is going to be difficult. And if you do try to get Mary back to a hard yes, and you try to show Mary that maybe she's wrong or that she doesn't need to talk to her husband, that she's capable of making this decision, how do you think that's going to go with Mary? You will instantly break rapport. So here's what we want is we want a micro agreement. We want to actually, what we call lower the action threshold on the agreement. I don't necessarily need to get Mary to agree that she doesn't need to check with the board or that she doesn't need to delay this. I just need to get Mary to agree that she likes what I'm saying, that she likes the idea, that the idea makes sense to her. So if we look at this, we're acknowledging that we heard the objection. I hear what you're saying, Mary. That's important because people can't hear until they've been heard, right? So she has to know that you've listened to her. I hear what you're saying, Mary. And now I'm then going to deflect the objection and I'm going to ask a question. But does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? See, there's no big consequence to her saying, yes, she likes the idea, and yes, that the idea makes sense to her. There's no big fight in her. Yeah, she'll, usually what Mary will say, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I like it. And that's your opportunity to say, great, because it really is a good idea. Now let me share with you the next piece. And now I'm going to share with her a feature or a benefit that will overcome her objection without me being in her face and without me trying to power over her. Remember, it's authority. It's not power. Write that down. It's authority. It's not power. Does that make sense? Just a show of hands. Let me just see it if I'm landing the plane here. Yeah? Okay. So the result is that your prospects feels heard and allows them to move to the next stage in the sales conversation without them getting stuck on the objection. Okay. Now, look, we're going to take you through the entire sales process. We're going to talk a lot about this next week, but this is the use of key phrases. If you're selling at an event and it's taking place at a resort, then call it a resort and not a hotel. If something is something free or is it complimentary, because there's times where you would use both words. Remember, we're talking about establishing rapport and maintaining rapport, and we're talking about 10 ways you do that. The first way is through the use of words, phrases, and language patterns. Okay, so do you use the word free or complimentary? There's different times you would use them. Does someone want to sign up, or does someone want to unlock exclusive access? Think about that. See, you want to know your audience. You don't want to. You certainly don't want to speak above them, and you don't want to speak down to them. Don't try to impress your prospect with your vocabulary. Understand that in this sales process, you are fighting to build and establish certainty. There are no free words, right? Every word you say is fighting for its life. It's why you have to have a well-scripted communication. It's why you have to have chunk vignettes of your presentation, thought in advance. So when you're in this dynamic relationship, you default to using the right tonality and the right words every single time. So each word and phrase is either bringing you and your prospect closer to or pushing them away from certainty.